I'd just first like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which I'm coming to you from. Pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And as I said earlier, and when we were just chatting, we're all coming to you from different places. We've got Brisbane, Sydney, Port Douglas, Brazil, and the Philippines for our presenters today. And we're going to talk about the joys of dev tips, learning from our great experts. They're all tech leads and super OutSystems brains that are here to share their knowledge with us. So I'll just quickly share my screen. And go through what we're doing today. Can you see my screen? Yes, you can, as it's repeated. Okay, so this is who is presenting to us today, sharing their knowledge, and you can easily find them on LinkedIn if you wanted to connect. And this is our agenda. So just a quick intro, and then we're going to get straight into it. John is going to go first. Everyone's going to talk for about 10 to 15 minutes. It's super casual. You can interject with questions in the chat. We'll try to answer them on the fly. And if your question doesn't get answered, just drop it again. They might not have seen it. Also, the other tech leads may interject with questions as well. So we're taking a very casual approach to this, but we will stick to the time because we're respectful of your time and it's the end of your day. And we'll also have a quick Kahoot at the end. And when I'll put this up when we have the Kahoot, and there will be prizes. So if you do win the Kahoot, make sure you email me and I'll register your information with OutSystems. So I'll quickly hand over to our mate John, who is going to do his presentation. And just chime in with your questions, guys.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Thanks, Cecilia. Happy to see people now joining. So we got more people than usual. Happy to see familiar names in there. So let me share my screen. 1 second. There you go. You might see yourself in there. Cool. So as for my topic, it's about the contactless application. I pick up this topic primarily because it's like things are changing now, as we know. I have a quote in here that it's the new normal of technology. In the past, like considering the web versions that we do have, we're chasing from web 1.0, web 2.0, and now upcoming, and then who knows when will it be, is the web 3.0, and we'll see the differences in between them. So this is me trying to appreciate what's in web 3.0, but hopefully this is not limited to just that when you try to digest whatever information that I'll be sharing. So just a brief introduction, and I'm working as a tech lead in PhoenixDX. Been here in a significant time. Been using OutSystems significantly as well. Exposed with Microsoft technology, JavaScript stack in there, so kind of immersed with the full stack development. And fortunately enough, got handed with an MVP status last year. And so we'll start with what really is contactless technology. So in here, this is like limited to what's available on in application with the application. When I say like application, it's more likely to say the mobile, the web, and it could also be a kiosk type of application. But back then, if you think about contactless, based on the research that I've made, it's like it started 1980s. If you remember those like contactless washers where you put your hands and it automatically put some wash in there and then kind of just get out and then clean your hands. So that's like the history of it. But as we get down and we get close to this stage, you may have seen the different transition of it from a simple hand washer. You get to include now some intelligence, more than just how it is like a binary kind of tools. So with technology nowadays, you get to interact with artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence have increased from needing the time for you to train some data. If you remember, like maybe 5 or 10 years ago, you have to think about how you will be able to gather some data, and that will be used as a prediction model for the AI mechanism. Nowadays, if you just go over the internet, you'll see lots of libraries available specific to the cognitive services that you'll be needing. Just speaking about AWS recognition, there's that Azure cognitive services, and a lot more. Not just cloud services, even libraries is out there. So these are just the primary contactless technologies that I think would be applicable most of the time. But more than that, it's just keep on growing. Like imagine how now ML could be used, machine learning could be used on use cases such as driving a car. If you have seen that video from Tesla where it could recognize object in trillions of computations per second. So think about hardware as well that increases from the time all this contactless technology was created. Um, so not too much to dig in each and every contactless item in here. Let's just um, make the scenario more closer to where we are at this stage. This is just a survey that was made last year that contactless technology demand increased. So with the travel specifically, 8 out of 10 folks would prefer using contactless technology rather than touching the screen or scanning their passport. So just on the airport alone, um, especially those who have access to the hardware that AI mechanism could support. They're now transitioning to a contactless, and and it's just one of the things that would change. I think as we move more to Web 3.0, um, where AI is really highlighted from the usage of the application, not just those things like metaverse, but more than that. When we think about Web 3.0, it's really making use of the resources within the computing mechanism. So with this drive, I would just like to cascade the passion in creating application that relates to contactless. May it be using those five cognitive services that I mentioned, not services, but those cognitive items that I mentioned, and also thinking about use cases that you can apply in your project. So um, it's about like when you travel. If you would think about that thing where you go and do your survey, it's typically you would touch the monitor, but now there are companies looking into offering through hand gesture. They'll be able to detect if you are happy or not with their services. So it's totally an alternative to complete daily tasks. Don't get me wrong, the usual buttons, mouse will still be there, but it's an alternative way and giving an option to the user not to make use of it. Because like what accessibility is all about, you want your application to be broad. not just covering a specific user, a specific race. It needs to have that capability. And so where you're probably thinking like, why am I talking about OutSystems and this is about AI and stuff? Um, I think OutSystems perfectly fit as an orchestrator of all of this component, given the speed that OutSystems offer. It if I may think about it, it acts like a neural network where if you have an input from the business, so that's like a diagram that I'm showing here. If you have an input for the business, you get like an output to respond into. So similar to how AI works, it's requiring some inputs, and within in the middle of it, there's like different sets of connection that it needs to decide on, and at some point it will merge all those data and give you an output that you can make use to whatever application you have. So, and the fact that OutSystems is speeding up the release cycle. So if you're building like a mobile application, consider you can consider as well like it's one application, mobile and desktop. So that's kind of giving you a leverage that you're making use of this new technology, contactless technology, and at the same time you're releasing that in such speed where you get so much feedback, so much data from the user that you could use to improve whatever AI mechanism you do have. And that's that. So getting more to the lower level of this AI, as mentioned, there are lots of AI libraries already available on the internet. Some of the popular ones like TensorFlow, Google Media Pipe, and tons, especially if you have gone from a Python programming. It's a lot of patterns that you could leverage from there. So on this presentation, what I'll be sharing to you guys is like an integration with air drawing, that is using the framework of MediaPipe, and my use case would be signing in a contract using a camera. So I might turn off my camera to transition later to the application. And by just doing some hand gesture, I'll be able to navigate through that application and commit the transaction. On the other side, the hand track would just like to say that there's that forge component. If you are interested with this mechanism, it's encapsulating like different hand gesture by default, and you'll be able to react to those events. It's all in client side, so nothing is getting disturbed with privacy. So you're okay with using them. I'm not seeing the chat window, but if there's any question, just feel free to interrupt me. So now that I think it's time for some demo, let me stop talking in there and just turn off my camera.
Just letting you know, John, you're getting your time warning.
Cool. All right.
You got to come.
Got it. This should be quick then. Right. Let me know if you see my screen still. Cool. I should be getting my camera up here. It might be slow because I'm kind of sharing and having AI mechanism at the same time. But right here, I'm just accepting the terms and condition. So I'm using my high five kind of hand gesture, and I'll be signing the contract using index finger. and I could erase any problem in there by using my to index. And lastly, I'll commit the transaction. So I'll use the OK sign to commit the transaction. And there you go. That's the end of this demonstration. Hope you got something in there. Thank you very much, guys.
That is so cool. So love that. It's amazing, John. You just make it look so easy too. Any questions? Nothing's popping up straight away. I think people are just saying, how can I turn my mic on? You just have to drop your questions into the chat, and we'll make sure, if the speaker doesn't see them, we'll make sure that they see them by the end of their talk. So next up, we've got Leo, who's going to be sharing his wisdom with us. Take it away, Leo. It's all yours.
Okay. Thank you. Let me know if you can see the screen.
Yeah, we can. Pretty damn fast. Love
All right. Pretty damn fast. Okay, just a short introduction. You don't know me. From PhoenixDX. I'm the head of delivery. I'm also one of the MVPs from OutSystems. If you've installed Forge components, you probably have already installed one of my Forge components. A big library of Forge components, and that I know help people develop applications pretty damn fast. And this is one of them with you. So jumping straight into it, how to develop or how to generate PDFs in pretty damn fast. So what you have to do is
Oh, did we lose Leo?
Yep.
Oh, no. Okay, you're back.
It's back.
You're back. Okay.
It's back.
All right.
All right. Pick up where you left off.
It's Brisbane internet. You know, we have that quality internet here. Okay. PDFs pretty damn fast. What you should do is use Ultimate PDF. I created this Forge component. There are a few of my colleagues in here that also helped component. And the main objective of that Forge component is, you know, strip away all generating and making it very natural. So we'll see how this. So first, you build the screen of systems, just a regular screen, as you would, you know, with your layout using CSS or publish that, and then what happens is when the users access that particular screen, kicks into action. And with the help of our friend Google Chrome, it's able to convert your screen, your OutSystems, to a PDF file, download it to the user. Okay. So this is pretty much the same work for a screen. It's just PDF is able to intercept that screen and is able to convert it to PDF very much transparently. We'll see a demo in a second. First, going through the features of this. First is that it doesn't require any configuration. You can install that, for example, in your and PDFs or on an enterprise environment. And the only dependency is Google Chrome. It's a very big download, but it is downloaded automatically by Ultimate PDF. After downloading the first time, so it doesn't download to generate all PDFs. It downloads, stores, and uses that copy to generate PDFs. Because we're using Google Chrome to generate PDF, is that we support latest web standards. That includes things like flex layout, CSS variable, and all sorts of cool stuff that Google Chrome, standard evolving in terms of CSS and JavaScript. Third key feature is that it is integrated in IDE. As I mentioned, build pretty straightforward, and it's pretty much the same thing you would do to present the screen to the user. But there's a step that is allows Ultimate PDF to convert the screen into web. It also supports secure screens, so different than other that require you to transform it to PDF. Ultimate PDF is able to validate and check that you have the registered role or the role required for that screen. So I had a few slides in here, but I think it would be much more interesting to do a demo. So I have here an application for it's one of the accelerators from OutSystems, just a form with 3 steps, and to have a code PDF generated at the end of this form. And first thing that we should do is create a screen. And you might notice that OutSystems or Ultimate with few installed. If you select here PDF, you can see there's a blank PDF. It says there's a new PDF. You can try creating this later, but just save a few moments. I'm gonna create. If you create an invoice PDF, you get a sample PDF with some, showcase elements. But a blank PDF is probably what you would use in a real enterprise application. We'll create a screen using Ultimate PDF that doesn't have any content. It's up to us to create that content. Now, of course, I'm not going to create contents in the. I have a screen here ready to copy paste, but I'm just gonna. It's off screen. I'll just get it. Paste. Pretty much see what would be done. Sorry for this wait. It's low today, especially with screen share. Some questions from Joan Cafe. Yes, please talk to me afterwards, or just what you have. And I think I know what you're talking about. If this show you on the slides, let's give it maybe 10 more seconds.
I think we're all very familiar with the spinning wheel of death. It's something that happens all too often.
Yeah.
It only happens when you're demoing something.
That's true. Oh,
100%.
here it is.
Hey.
Just because you enjoy it.
You got 2, right?
All right. Good. That means I can proceed with the demo. Here is my Okay, now I've got it. So it's not really blank. It has some instructions in here. Instructions are important. But before we go, just noticing that there's a header, there's a main content, and there's my imagine the header and the footer is repeated in all pages of the PDF, and it's what. So let's have a look at instructions. So first instruction is something to clean your application. There's a new warning over here that shows up. You can just, this is warning here because it's telling that ultimate PDF is intercepting that screen rendering. Can you hear me? It's just telling that there is an action on initialize preventing the screen from, which is what you want. You want it to as a PDF, not as a typical screen. There's another piece of runtime that needs application ready. Pretty much just following these steps. If you don't ready yet, add it, and then just drag this action. Okay. And the third instruction is pretty much done. As it will, we're done with instructions and can start implementing the screen. If you want to ask questions and as well. Develop this screen is pretty much how you would develop any other screen. I'll just gonna do this a little bit faster. This will be a quote PDF. You can rename this, of course. You can leave it anonymous and registered. I think I'm logged in. Yes, I am logged in. So I'm gonna leave it as registered. We need a quote ID. And we're gonna get some queries from the server to validation. Quote. And then we're gonna build the content. So we can add a logo in here, typically a logo and title on the header. This will be repeated in every page. And on the content, I have a bunch of stuff in here that display that's coming from.
Just breaking in to give you a time warning, Leo.
All
Just
right,
got a couple
we're
minutes.
almost done. And this is done. The screen is ready to be transformed into PDF. How do you trigger the user to download? So at the end of the form, when we submit the form, we create the quote in right to that. So redirecting to the screen in this case is going to transfer PDF and download. And that's done. While this publishes, I my presentation. It's the same thing that I've done. This is the result, the end result. After we submit this download, this PDF downloaded. If you want to debugging in a PDF, it's difficult to debug a PDF being generated if you want to debug logic or aggregates. A helpful tip is to equals true in the URL. It's done. So let me demo. have a button here, so I don't need to type in everything. So it just keeps populated some information over there. It will be short of time. So clicking submit has created a quote in the server, downloading the PDF, and here it is.
I have a question, Leo.
Next slide.
Leo, do you
Sure.
have any tips or suggestions if we were going to be using this tool in scenarios where we're expecting a lot of PDF downloads, like in a short period of time? So let's say my application is open up to hundreds of thousands of users, and I'm expecting to get thousands of PDF downloads every day. Is there any suggestions that you would advise users for this tool to use for scenarios like this?
Yeah, of course. If you can cache some of these PDFs, then you're gonna save time in your server. So I'll try to use some caching strategy. You can also generate these PDFs in a batch time of PPT and pre-compute them overnight, for example. So there's strategies that you can use to improve the performance or the usage of the server.
Makes sense. Cheers.
Does that answer your question?
It does indeed. Thanks.
Okay. All right. All right. Now you can open the screen called PDF with previewing, and that will not generate it. Will open in the browser, and this is very helpful for debugging. And that's it.
Awesome. Good job. That was really fascinating. I love getting to actually see a demo as well, rather than just slides. So cool. All right. So now we've got straight from Brazil in the hot Brazilian summer, Rafael. Go for it.
Thank you, Ceci. Let me share my screen here with you guys. Already said, I am Brazilian, so right now it's a little bit late for me, 4 a.m. If I am a little bit sleepy, I apologize. But anyway, a short introduction. I am Rafael Ranieri, one of OutSystems MVP, the same as Leo, João, and John, and in the future, hopefully, Osama. And also a tech lead on PhoenixDX. Today, my dev tip for you guys is to show you a way to create external synchronizations in an easy and organized way. Okay. So let's start what it is. The generic sync pattern, in other words, is a forge component that I created to help us to create these external synchronizations. It is basically a set of actions and scripts that implement some generic actions that you have to customize. So it's not something that you will not have to code anything. It is a set of generic actions that you have to actually customize. What it does, as I said, it helps to create standards for your data synchronizations, your external synchronizations, following well-defined best practices recommended by OutSystems. It also will provide a set of out-of-the-box features for all your synchronizations. Okay. Why I did it? Okay, this is, I think, the most important question that I can answer right now, because over the years, almost all the projects that I participated and I was part of had these requirements, like to synchronize something from external database or external base of any sort. And I noticed that the customer always asked for the same thing. For example, the ability to configure the periodicity of the streams, or the ability to see the history of the synchronizations, or to see what went wrong in the synchronization. So over the years, I realized that I could create a pattern to help me in the future. And this is why I did it. The benefits of this component, of using these components, and spoiler alert, guys, pay attention, because it will be one of the Kahoot questions. So memorize. One of the benefits of this component is to first ensures the code reusability, because it will practically have all the actions already done, right? You will be able to reuse a lot of the actions for the common features. The second benefit is that it will be easier to maintain, because all the common behaviors, all the common features will be the same code, right? And it will provide out of the box features, the same features for all your synchronizations. Okay. So how can you use it? First of all, like I said, since it is a Forge component, you have to download it from Forge. The second step is to clone and rename the module to ensure you can use it multiple times. This is a very important step, because in case you have multiple projects, multiple applications inside your environment, you want to make sure that they have an independent life cycle. So ideally you want to create one synchronization module for each of your projects. Okay, so clone and rename it, the second step. The third step is basically to customize your actions, the actions that you will need to implement your own logic. When you download the component, you will see that we have some folders called generic samples. Okay, here we have sync generic samples and sync generic samples multiple runs. They are different types of runs. I will say more about that if I have time in the ends, but for the sake of the demonstration, I will focus on the simpler one, which is the normal generic sample. Okay. So the third step is to customize these two actions. These two actions, basically, what you will have to do is very minor changes inside these two actions. The first one, which is the sync generic action, is meant to fetch all the data from the external source that you want. So basically what you have to do is change the source action that will retrieve the data. And the second action, which is the commit single generic sample, is an action that you have to customize to implement your own rules, your own set of rules. For example, let's say that I have a requirement to synchronize a department list. However, if the department doesn't have a name, I don't want to commit this into inside my database, right? I want to raise an exception. So here would be the place where I would implement all the rules, all the specific rules and business logic that I need for these specific records. Inside the Forge components, guys, on the documentation, you will find a very detailed manual that links to a Medium article to help you to all steps that you have to do to use properly these components. So I will not detail a lot of the steps here, but keep in mind that all these details are already done in the documentation. What I will try to show you today is a showcase of the application to show you what you can have, what are the common features that you will have if you decide to use these components. Okay, so let's do it. Just a very short introduction to the demo. Here, what I will do is that I will try to consume a REST API. Okay, the synchronizations that I will show are consuming a REST API that will try to sync departments or employees. Okay, so this is the initial screen, the main screen of the application. Here you will have, okay, session expired. Let me log in again. Here you will see all your synchronization types. So the component will also helps you to centralize the synchronizations. Okay, the personal environment must be with a lot of work going on. Sorry guys for that. Let's see if I can log in now. No. One more time. The 3 times is the lucky one. The 3rd time is the lucky one. Okay, so here is the main screen. I can see the types of synchronizations that I have. If I go inside it, I can define the periodicity that I want it to run. If I want to run in minutes, hours, or days, I can define it as active or inactive. I can even see here all the history that I have for the synchronizations. You can note that since it is scheduled to run every day, it has some old schedules that happened in the past. If I go inside each history, I can see how many items were synchronized inside this specific synchronization. It's important to say that it also has a mechanism to delete some old logs, so you will not have the full log history here. I have, I think, just the last 3 months because I chose to keep just the last 3 months. And I can also start manual run if I want. For some reason I want to trigger on demand the synchronization. I can also do that with this pattern. Okay, a last case that I want to show you guys that I defined it before we started is if I have any errors inside my synchronization. Here, I forced an error to occur. I deleted some of the departments from my database manually, and this raised an exception on the employee synchronization because each employee has to have a department by default. And if I don't have, I have a check where I see that I can't find a department in my database and I raise an exception. And what happens in this case is that for each records that I try to synchronize and I don't find a department, I create an error in my synchronization, and I don't synchronize that specifically records. However, it doesn't mean that I will not synchronize all the other records that are successful. So here we can see that 38 items were synced successfully and 17 items failed to sync. And I can see which items failed in a very easy way so I can properly handle these errors. Okay.
Raf, I'm just breaking in with your time warning. You've got a couple of minutes left.
Okay, I think I am over. Here I just want to show you guys the documentation that I mentioned. You will see that help you define all the necessary steps to to create your synchronizations as you want. Here you will see what you have to change, what you have to implement in your own customization. And that's it. I think this is what I wanted to show. If you have any questions, I can answer in the ends. Otherwise, I hand over to João, I think. Sissy, I'm not sure who is next.
Perfect timing. Great Prezzo. Yeah, no, you were bang on time. Absolute legend. Yep. So now we're over to João, and go for it. Share your wisdom.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. And always learning with you guys. And kudos, Raf, on the time management. Way better. Hope I can learn this lesson today. That's something I'm pretty bad at. So today I planned to talk a little bit about the tool, SQL Sandbox. That's also a Forge component, pretty useful for you guys who hadn't had the chance to work with it. It's being built by a couple of smart guys out there. And yeah, I just plan to demo a few of its features. First thing, the idea is to share with you some ideas of how to boost dev productivity whenever you need to have access to database. Quick introduction about myself. I'm currently the head of product delivery at PhoenixDX, and also an OutSystems MVP. So, and also one of my functions at Phoenix is to lead the tech lead chapter. So pretty much everyone here in this call today is part of our chapter. So we all work together at Phoenix as tech leads. Quick agenda for this quick talk. So I'm gonna give you a very brief introduction of the component, SQL Sandbox. We're gonna do a quick demo on how you can interact with the tool how you can use the tool to interact with the OutSystems meta model as well. So the internal metadata of the platform. We're gonna explore some app data as well and play around with how you can extract data out of your OutSystems applications, some cool features as well, and hardening security in the end. So for the ones who didn't have the chance to come across the component, that's it, SQL Sandbox. You can download it from Forge. It's been created by Leonardo. And we've been contributing as well with some minor features added for. We've been playing with this component for what, 3 years already, almost 3 years. Yeah, and considering the reviews and the number of downloads, I think it's pretty useful for developers. It's one of those tabs on Google Chrome that never leaves. So it's almost there, stuck to my browser. Let's start with some basic stuff. What you guys are seeing on the right-hand side on my screen is actually the tool, SQL Sandbox. I've just zoomed in on it so that we can show details of the tool. So first, the menu. Let me first walk through the very first view of the app. Hopefully my session is still there. Cool. So the very first screen in the app is actually a list of projects, list of applications, and the modules where you can find entities, so data concepts in your infrastructure. I'm actually connected to my personal environment here, and these are the applications I can see. I'm gonna start with a very basic application just to show you how you can interact with the basic stuff. So let's assume I know that the product catalog CS module has entities in it, and I want to give it a go and see what products I have in the database. That's a very quick example of how you can get the top 10 records in the products table. But of course, I can also delve into the tables that are part of this module. This text area here has a code complete feature, which is pretty useful. So the moment you type brackets, you get to see the list of tables available in that module. So you can see the product category, the list of product categories. You get to see the list of favorites. In this case, it must be empty. You get to see also the users table. It's actually the native users table in the platform. Happy I didn't disclose my passwords here. And so that's interesting to see what you can do. What pretty much you type in the comment field here is an advanced query. So it's pretty useful for troubleshooting whenever you're having those performance issues and you want to bring the query out of Server Studio so that you have a more a quicker and a better experience when you're investigating your commands. You want to play around with variables, and you don't want to necessarily build, for example, an output structure in your advanced query in Service Studio. So it's pretty handy. You can see all the fields are dynamically assembled on the result section. Another thing I wanted to explore is that you can also have access to the OutSystems meta model. This is just a list of a few of the tables you can have access to. Through the OutSystems meta model, you can have access to controls that you normally don't have access through Service Studio. Variables that are available on Service Center, for example, you can have access to the list of site properties. But if you want, for example, to keep a list of your favorite site properties or of all the site properties in an application you're working on, you can have quick access to it through SQL Sandbox as well. So let's play around with some useful comments. For example, if I want to have the list of available modules in a specific application. So I have the OutSystems sample data app. It's one of those dummy sample applications available on the Forge. You can see the list of modules that belong to that application with this SQL statement. Just goes through some of the internal OutSystems metadata tables. And in this case, I'm just fetching two fields, the eSpace name and the entity name. But you will have access to pretty much all the fields in the platform. So sorry about that, the right place. So sorry about that again, forgot the space here. If you want to see all the fields in the entity table, you get to see even its physical name, whether it's a multi-tenant table, whether it's active or not, if it's a system or external table. So pretty much all the metadata that the OutSystems leverages in its own tools, you have access through SQL Sandbox as well by knowing the meta model. It's all the metadata is documented in official OutSystems documentation, guys, so it's all available publicly. Another example here, pretty similar to the previous one, is what if I want to have access to all the attributes in tables? So all the attributes you create through Service Studio, you can get access to it here as well easily. That's something I've been using quite often. So whenever I need to assess requirements around data migration, imagine the clients want to bring data from one application to the other within the same environment, or you need to provide a thorough documentation to your client. You can easily extract the data from straight from the OutSystems database through a simple command. In this case, I'm listing all the entities available in my environment for the OutSystems sample app with the list of attributes. It's data type. When it's a foreign key, it's represented with the target tables GUID, the key for the target table. I won't delve into details, but there is a way to get to the table if need be, and the length in case it's a text field. So as you can see, it's pretty straightforward to get access to the metadata. Another interesting, super useful command is when you want to have access to timers, for example. Of course, it's information available on Service Center, but sometimes you want to have more flexibility. Like I want to, I want to have the list of all the timers available in my infrastructure and all their schedules, and make sure that my async jobs are healthy and well configured in the environment. That's a pretty common use case as well. For example, by using a command like this, I was able to identify once that there was a timer running every 5 minutes, and there was not a good setup in a very complex, a very robust infrastructure. And there was a pretty heavy timer. By checking its current schedule, and we didn't really know what was causing production issue. It was a new environment. So we just sent over this comment straight away to the client, asked them to run it in their production environments, and we didn't even have access to Service Center. So with a quick command, we were able to identify what was causing a problem. Of course, it's just a way to troubleshoot timer problems. And just really quick, apart from metadata, of course, you can also explore some applicational data. So in this example here, I'm not gonna say what it does. I just wanted to invite you guys to drop on the chat what this command is supposed to deliver in the result set. Of course, it's over the OutSystems user table. And the user table is a native OutSystems table, but it's an applicational table, right? It's where OutSystems stores its end user accounts, and it's the main table used in the /users app. So for whoever here has managed end user accounts, you know what table I'm talking about. I'll leave the challenge there, and drop your comments if you want to. If you want to. In SQL Sandbox, we can also interact with data, so we can manipulate information. You're not limited to data retrieval scenarios. You can update data. But of course, I don't want to run comments like these, right? I really want to be, because my career might be in jeopardy if I do something like this, right? So that's an irresponsible update script. And bear with me, guys. I'm just in a zoomed in view in the screen, and apparently Nad and I didn't test responsiveness quite well. So the idea here is that it's an update command, right? And we don't want irresponsible update commands running on any environment, especially production environment. Imagine an update without aware. I've seen a lot of interns being fired because of commands like these. So yeah, it's just really safe net to allow you not to mess around with the data in your production environments. And some cool features. Really quickly introducing you guys to some of the cool features in the application. So first, here at the bottom section of the screen, you have access to the history of the comments you run in your session. So you can have quick access to a command if you want to reuse it. You see that it's populated at the top, and you can rerun it very quickly. Another quick and interesting feature is you can save comments so that you can reuse them on a future session. And if you go to the menu, you get to see the comment is saved there. So you know those useful comments that you run every other day, every other week, or you want to have them at the click of a button, so you can save them to reuse later. We just get back to the previous view, and then it can also be used, which is a pretty interesting feature, to download binary content from the database. So in this example, I'm again exploring a metadata table, the eSpace version, which is where OutSystems stores all the OML files, all the extensions that are sent to the server whenever you publish something through Service Studio. And if I want to download that binary, we get to see the file here in the OML file attributes. You can download the file. It's going to download the generic dummy extension. The moment you rename it to an OML, because you know this file is an OML, you can easily open it in Studio, for example. So it's pretty useful for scenarios where you want to download files that clients upload or end users upload, or whenever you're debugging to make sure that the logic you apply over uploaded files is okay and the file is stored safely on the server side on the database.
Just
CC,
breaking
1 minute.
No, you've just got a timer warning.
Thank you so much.
2 minutes, go.
It can also be used to download deleted files. Thanks, Leo. If I want to see all the old deleted modules, that's what you can do. But the problem is OutSystems zeroes down the file. The old eSpace version is there, but the file is zeroed down. It's probably because I cleaned the old eSpace version in my environment, actually.
Yeah.
Another interesting feature is you can save pretty much any result set as a CSV. So imagine that you can send the payload over to someone and like a useful result set like this, and you want to export it to a CSV, easily extracted to CSV file that can be easily be opened on an Excel as an Excel spreadsheet, as you can see here. So pretty useful for troubleshooting as well. Another interesting feature is you can see, you can browse the entities on the module you have open at the moment. So if you go browse entities, you get to see the list of entities currently sitting on your environment. You get to mark them as favorite, so they're displayed at the top. Let me improve the responsiveness of the screen. Beautiful, way better. So you get to see all the tables, the module they belong to, their physical name, and you can quickly assemble select or update statements for them. So when you click select statement, you get the select statement built in here with all the fields. Sorry, clicked the wrong place. And you can also not only navigate through your favorite tables, but you have access to all the tables in the system. So for example, if I want to see the users table, there's a search here at the top. And you really can have access to pretty much everything in your database. Last but not least, another cool feature is how you can harden security. You can give people, which can be your developers. It turns out to be an end user application, so you need to create to your developers end user accounts. And if you want to give, for example, not that it needs to be a rule of thumb, but if you want to give your tech leads full access to all the database, to all the tables, so that they can run insert, update, and delete commands, you can give them a DML access. By the way, you're gonna need this knowledge in a couple of minutes. Mark my words. And if you want to give your junior developers, for example, people that might not be too confident on the commands they're going to run, you can give them only select access. So they're going to have a read-only access pretty much. This, by the way, was contribution from another MVP. He's part of the SQL Sandbox team, and he's been contributing to the component. Feel free to drop your suggestions, new features, new ideas. We're happy to keep improving the component to address your needs. That's me. Thank you.
Thanks, Zhao. That's great. That's great. And we're very fortunate to have Osama with us today because he's actually on annual leave and he's joining us from vacation. So take it away, Osama.
Thank you very much. And still, talking about OutSystems is my vacation, so I'm more than happy to jump in and then have a chat with you guys. All right, a quick introduction about myself while I bring up the slides here. My name is Osama. I'm an OutSystems technical lead at Phoenix and a trainer as well. And today I'm going to be talking about mobile app update distribution strategies. It's a mouthful, I know, but it is very important in my opinion. And it's a topic that's coming in a very timely manner for me specifically because it is something that we had to tackle for a couple of clients very recently. So I will share my screen here to get things kicked off. All right. Just making sure it's up. All right, there we go. So mobile app update distribution strategies. First of all, I wanted to start with a quick definition of what mobile application update distribution means so we can get going. Essentially, mobile application update distribution means refers to the process of releasing app updates to a set of users to continuously promote app engagements and usage. So in other words, you've gone live, you've deployed and distributed your native mobile application to your customers, and now it's time to push out updates, whether that's new enhancements, new features, bug fixing, etc. And usually this strategy of this process revolves around three key factors that you always have to consider when putting together a robust strategy. Number one is distribution channels, which essentially means the method of which you're going to be pushing out your updates. And of course, if you're using, for example, the Google Play Store to distribute your mobile app, then that's where you're going to be distributing your updates. Similarly, if you're using a private enterprise store, that's where you're going to be distributing your updates as well. So this is very important to consider. Number two is the update frequency. So are you going to be pushing out updates every week, every month, every couple of months? So that's something also you have to factor in. However, the third one and the one I want to be delving deep into is update type. Now, typically, there's two update types that we would talk about, especially in the realm of OutSystems. Number one being hybrid updates, and number two being store-only updates. Let's start with hybrid updates first and talk about what it is, and then we can compare it to store-only updates and then connect everything back into our OutSystems application. So what are hybrid updates? Essentially, hybrid updates is the update type that all OutSystems, native OutSystems mobile applications are configured to. So when you build your OutSystems application and deploy it, you would have the hybrid update distribution strategy set up by default. And what that means is when you deploy a new version of your mobile application to the target service or production, for example, a soft update would be immediately available for end users who have your app installed. So as soon if I'm an end user and I've got this mobile app installed on my device, after the deployment, the OutSystems deployment occurs and completes successfully, if I open the app on my mobile device, then you would see a blue banner that comes from the top of the screen saying that your app has been updated to the latest version or something along these lines, indicating that you've just received a soft update and now your app is running on the latest version. However, with hybrid updates, there's also a secondary update type which also falls into the mix, which is the app shell update. So you have the option of also distributing the latest APK or IPA, depending on the operating system that your app is working on, to your customers. And that will be done via the distribution channels that you've defined. So in this particular illustration, we have a soft update being fired off to the end user when they launch the app. And we've also got an app shell update that we also want to distribute to your customers via the Play Store and the Apple App Store as well. All right. One thing to note about this approach here is for the soft updates, the one on the top, there isn't a toggle to turn it off if you're in hybrid update mode. So as long as you're working with hybrid updates and seemingly leave everything as is, as default, as for your OutSystems application, soft updates will always be fired and always be made available when the end user accesses their mobile application. However, on the other hand, the app shell update is completely optional. If there isn't anything that requires a new build, then potentially you'd be happy with just the soft update that the customers just received without having to go through the submission process for your latest build, right? Let's talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages of this. So number one, instant update delivery. So of course, with the soft update, like we just mentioned, as soon as the OutSystems deployment is complete, the soft update will be available for your end users. It's not as fast as Leo's damn fast PDF generator, but it is pretty fast. So you can count on me on that one. The second advantage here is the reduced risk of bugs. So very tightly related to point number one, because you have the ability to push out soft updates very quickly after the deployment concludes, then there's a less chance of a customer to encounter any bugs that you might just have fixed with that soft update. So that speed also plays a big advantage for your update distribution strategy. And number three, and this might be a big one for particular requirements, critical updates are delivered even if the auto update feature is turned off. So some customers like to disable like to go into the App Store and disable auto update capability from the App Store. So what that means is if you release a new version, new app shell version into the App Store, then it wouldn't be automatically downloaded. The user would have to open the Play Store and download it manually. However, with soft updates being available, then you can circumvent this this feature, and you'll always be able to patch, any vulnerabilities, any minor UI or minor logic changes that you need to do, even if this option is turned off for particular customers. Looking at the other side, disadvantages, obviously starting with the very obvious one, soft updates will only be transmitted over to customers if the customer's online, or if the device of the customer is online. If your application is in an offline environment, then obviously soft updates wouldn't reach your device until you connect to the internet. And this is where the second point comes in. I'll give a bit of a scenario for this one particularly to be able to explain it a little bit better. So let's consider a scenario where you're building a native mobile application and it's primarily going to be deployed in an offline environment. So it's not going to be connected to the internet for a prolonged period of time, months, 6 months, a year, you don't know. It has to work offline. Now, if you have hybrid updates enabled, what would happen is, as you continue to improve the application and continue to deploy new versions of this application and soft updates potentially being sent out to the online versions of that mobile application, this particular device or the devices that are not connected to the internet will not receive the soft updates. And those will accumulate over time. So soft update after soft update not being installed onto those offline devices. And then what would happen is eventually when this device goes online, whether that's 6 months or 1 year down the line, the application will try to download the latest soft update that you deployed. And what it might do is it might try to modify app parts or run scripts or run any changes that this update will introduce to app parts that don't exist on your app yet because of the missed soft updates that came previously. And what might happen is you might be putting your user data in jeopardy because you wouldn't know exactly how the application behave after trying to install a version which is 10 versions after for example, 10 versions after the version that's currently installed on the device. So there is a risk there that has to be factored in for those kinds of scenarios. And finally, point number 3 is degradation of user experience when soft updates rely on new native functionality. This is something that we encounter pretty frequently with native mobile applications, especially with apps that leverage a lot of native functionalities like accessing the webcam, the file system, etc. And what this point is referring to is when you introduce a new native capability to your mobile application, you have to distribute a new app shell or a new build to your customers to be able to leverage this native capability. And what tends to happen if you have hybrid mode enabled, then the soft update will deploy some logic which might have been deployed prematurely because it wouldn't be fully functional until the native build is available. And what would usually happen is, of course, following OutSystems best practices, you would usually, have your Cordova plugin checks to ensure that, that the particular plugin that you're trying to access is available and that catches some of these errors. But you also sometimes have to build error pages, which state that you have to update to the latest version of your application before you can access this particular application. So user experience is usually affected when you encounter scenarios like these. So what can we do in these situations? Well, this is where store-only updates come into play. Very, very similar to hybrid updates, however, minus the soft update. So as soon as you deploy your OutSystems application to the target server, a soft update wouldn't be pushed out to your end user, to the end user devices after they've launched the app. The only way you would able to transmit those updates to your end users is via app shell updates or via the store, as the name suggests. Now, what are the advantages and disadvantages for this particular approach? Well, number one, under advantages, increased app stability for offline applications. So again, tying into the scenario we talked about for the hybrid, some of the downsides of that hybrid approach, where offline applications, the data of offline applications might be placed in jeopardy or in risk, especially for prolonged periods of time. This scenario here ensures that for every update that you deploy, you can properly control and properly upgrade devices which are running older versions to the latest version. So you have way more control of what you can do with in the update process of those devices. Number two is controlled rollout plans. So there's a lot of organizations, especially large organizations, which like to use multiple distribution channels. So they like to distribute the app via the App Store, via the Play Store. They might have an enterprise store for a different set of applications. They might use an MDM solution to roll out updates to on-site devices. So for scenarios like these, for organizations like those, a controlled rollout plan is way more beneficial and way more easy to control than a plan where soft updates are released every time you deploy a version to the target server, and maybe one distribution channel might be ahead of another one. So having the updates only being transmitted via app shells, it ensures that and assists those managers to deploy those updates on those different distribution channels in a more timely manner, in a more controlled manner. All right. And finally, one of the biggest advantages that sometimes might be overlooked whilst using store-only updates is increased flexibility in PVT. So considering a scenario where hybrid updates is enabled, when you release a version when you deploy an update to the target environment, because a soft update is immediately made accessible for your end users, it might be harder to run extensive PVT tests, or at least as many PVT tests as you want before the update gets into the customer's hands. With the store only, because the only way that customers would receive any updates are via the app stores, then you would have a prolonged time or period of time to run PVT, to execute any of the tests that you prefer to run in production, for example, way before any other customer gets their hand on the latest update. And if you're happy with the update, then you would push those updates into your Play Store, into your enterprise stores, etc. Let's look at some of the disadvantages for this approach. Number one, of course, it's not instantaneous. So no soft updates, no updates that can be fixed, that can be rolled out immediately. You're really controlled by the distribution channels that you're using for this approach. So let's take the Play Store or the App Store as an example. Usually, you might expect those public stores to take, let's say, up to 2 days to review a new change that you might want to list in the stores. So even if you wanted to change something extremely minor in your application, it might take those 2 days for that change to reflect in your customers' devices. So that's number one of the biggest disadvantages. Number two, which is something, again, very closely related to number one, is the increased chance to encounter bugs and vulnerability. So exactly the opposite of hybrid, where because of this instantaneous update that you send out, you can patch any vulnerabilities or risk before a lot of the customers access your application. In this scenario over here, because there's this potentially, taking the 2-day example here again, there's a 2-day gap before the latest update, which is the end users, then there's an increased chance for your end users to encounter those bugs, encounter those risks in your mobile application. So that's something that also need to consider. Now, you might be asking, Well, okay, you said hybrid updates is what OutSystems application is used by default. Is there a way we can switch over to store?
Just a quick timer warning, 2 minutes.
All good,
Sorry.
all good. No worries. So how do I enable this for OutSystems? Now, a lot of users might not know this, but you can, in fact, switch over to store-only update mode in OutSystems for, well, on an app-per-app basis, as a matter of fact. A few disclaimers, though, I guess, or a few things to note. Number one, this this feature, which OutSystems calls Configure Mobile Application Updates Distribution, is listed under technical preview. And what that means is this feature might not be suitable for all scenarios. You need to thoroughly test this feature on a sandbox application, for example, just to ensure that you're not increasing or adding any risk to your application because you're leveraging a technical preview option. And a second thing to consider here is OutSystems support sometimes will not be able to assist you with technical preview features because, again, they're not available. They're not enabled by default. They're not for general availability. They're under technical preview for a reason, of course. So just wanted this quick disclaimer just to ensure that you test this feature with another app thoroughly before implementing it on your production application. However, it is actually very easy to enable this. So there is a three main prerequisites that you need to know of, which is one, you need to be running lifetime 11.6 or higher. You need to be running platform server 11.10 or higher. And the mobile application you want to enable this feature for has to be generated with maps 6.2 or higher. Assuming you meet all of these prerequisites, you can go to lifetime, environments, and then on the top right-hand side, there's an option drop-down. If you click on the option drop-down, you would see a technical preview drop-down option. And clicking on that will show you, will navigate you to the technical preview page. And this option over here, this feature, would be one of those, one of the options that you can enable. Now, I will share a link from OutSystems official doc as well, guiding on what you can do and what you can't do with this feature, just so you have a clear vision on some of the potential limitations that they might not apply to your application, but just things to consider before diving in. And finally, assuming you have enabled your feature, then the next time you deploy a mobile application which matches those prerequisites, of course, there'll be a new distribution tab in the configure step in lifetime when you're deploying your application to the next environment. And this distribution tab will be available on a per app basis, meaning that if I have 10 mobile applications, for example, in my deployment plan, each of these applications will have their own configuration. So you can have 5 of these applications left on hybrid, but the other 5, for example, can be set to store only. So you have this configurability. So I will leave links to the OutSystems official docs for this particular feature. I will also leave a link to an article that I published not very long ago, which also breaks this down into further details on why you might want to consider this approach. But more than happy to answer any questions, and thank you for listening.
Awesome. I just actually dropped the link to your article that you published the other day. So that's already there. So go ahead and drop the other links. Very cool.
Thanks.
Okay. Thanks for that. Everyone, it was great, riveting.